Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, The Evolution of ECBA, Exam Updates and Tips, presented by our Director of Business Solutions here at Watermark Learning, Dr. Susan Heidorn. My name is Mariela Salinas, and I'll be assisting and moderating our session today. We are in Zoom for today's webinar, and we will be sharing a copy of this recording with you in an email after the session. We do encourage participation throughout the session, so please use the chat or that Q&A option for our short Q&A after the presentation. Educate 360 is so excited to present this webinar today. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to you, Dr. Heidorn.
Well, hello everyone. I'm surprised that we have excitement a little bit around the ECBA. So it has evolved quite a bit. So if you're thinking about going for your ECBA, it is really good that you are attending this because I will let you know what's changing. So if you have colleagues or anyone who's taken it before, it is different. So let's talk about the differences here. To begin with, though, we're going to just do a little overview of ECBA. ECBA actually was launched in 2016, so it's almost 10 years old. It was the last of the three core certifications, CBAP, which you need the most hours, 7,500 hours of experience, came out in 2006. And then they had CCBA, and that kind of came out around mid-level. And then ECBA was the last one, even though that's the entry level to certification. But we're finding huge interest in ECBA. It's like, what is business analysis? Why do we want to do this? And it's really the first step in looking at business analysis. Sometimes we have people in our classes that are just confirming, hey, do I know what I think I know? And it's just being able to introduce it to you and really focus, and the change has been too, focusing on the practical application so that anyone who takes the ECBA now really has a little bit of elevated foot up, so to speak, they call it job readiness. And so it's not just knowledge base, which it used to be. It's just, do you know what the definition of a stakeholder is? Do you know a definition of a requirement? And now they've really moved to say, hey, wait a second, that doesn't provide as much value as it would if we had people that are taking this class that can begin as a business analyst, or maybe they manage business analysts. And so this is really kind of what they are seeing is the first step, to business analysis. Maybe it's somebody who you've done business analysis while you were a developer. You've done business analysis as a PM, and you want to get a little bit more grounded in this. So this ECBA is a great opportunity. And the nice thing is you don't need any experience, but you do leave with some application tips. How are you going to use business analysis in your organization? So it's not just saying, hey, do I know how to spell business analysis? But, I can kind of do a few things around that. So it's really looking and aim for career people who maybe just got out of college, or they've done this, on the business side or the technical side, but they want to dig a little bit more into it. They want to accelerate maybe their growth a little bit, move up to that next step. And like we said, we have organization managers who say, hey, I manage business analysts, but I'm not sure what they're supposed to be doing, which is always interesting. And capabilities, also people who do consulting. Maybe they're a project manager and they do consulting, and they have to get requirements, and they have to kind of know what a business analyst does as well. So oftentimes we wear many hats. And so ECBA is really good for those people that are just, getting started. So let's talk about the changes, because there's been a drastic change in the ECBA exam. So like I said, if you have any colleagues that have taken the exam before, the change, it is going to look different. So there's greater emphasis on application. How do you apply these principles, these concepts, these techniques, rather than just memorizing, what is a process map, or what is a entity relationship diagram, or what is a stakeholder? I mean, it's just, so it's going to focus on that. It's really changed, and we're going to talk about each one of these in detail coming up. It's moved to understanding the core concept model that's behind business analysis, and less on the knowledge areas that were in the BA-BOK, which is the business analysis body of knowledge. They've revised the exam structure, they've revised the format, and it is now aligned with what they call the industry standard, and we'll be going through each one of those. So the exam used to just be a knowledge-based exam, just recall, what is the definition of this? So what they've done, instead of saying, hey, that doesn't provide enough value, let's make sure that, at least when they're taking this exam, they get their certification, they're walking away with something of value. They're walking away with a number of things that they can do to add value to their organization and add value to themselves. So rather than saying, I'm going to have a question around what is a stakeholder? So what is the definition of stakeholder? Instead, they might say, hey, you know what? Here's a situation in which a business analyst would play. So let's say you were gathering business requirements, and they said, well, what stakeholders would you want to talk to about business requirements? Business requirements being what is the problem, or what are the key objectives. You'd probably want to talk to more senior level stakeholders, rather than just defining the technique. What is benchmarking? What is market analysis? They would then give you a situation where it says, let's take a look at this. Here's the situation. Maybe you're saying you're trying to understand a process. What technique would you use to understand a process? In this case, you might do process modeling. It's like, well, let's map it out and see what it looks like and see what the sequence is. So it's really about application over just memorization. Of course, memorization is going to help, because you do need to know what the terms are, but they don't quiz you on that. They're going to incorporate that knowledge into an application question. They've expanded the role of what they call the BACM, the Business Analysis Core Concept Model. This has been around even in the Business Analysis Body of Knowledge, the BA-BOK guide. And so it's been around for a while, and they said, you know what, this is the model that everything hinges upon in business analysis. And so and this is what they've all looked at, and these are the key domain, they're called domains now, the key domains that you need to know. So one is the need, okay? You need to understand what the problem or the opportunity is. If you don't understand what the problem and the opportunity is, I guess any solution will work. Just throw something at the wall. This becomes the North Star, and that's why it's so critical to business analysts, is understanding what the problem is, understanding what the opportunity is, because everything we do as business analysts align to that. So need is one of the concepts of that core concept model. Context is the next thing, and you just working in your organizations understand how important context is. The circumstances about what the changes around, what's going on. And so if you don't have the context, you can really easily get off the rail, so to speak. It's just like, man, we're on the wrong page here. So you do need to understand the context, what's going on around that change, and the change may become that project, right? There's something changing. Maybe it's a process change, maybe it's a technology change. Maybe it's a reorg structure change, so reorganizing the organization. So the structure and the reporting structure is all going to change. Those are all changes, but you need to understand the context in which that change is occurring. Is it all departments? Is it just one department? So understanding what's surrounding that and what might influence that change. Stakeholders. These are the people who are, as you know, impacted by the change and care about the change, right? And so, or the solution, they may be impacted by the solution as well. And so we need to understand those, because if we don't understand the stakeholders and know who they are, then we probably won't be able to get a chance to talk to them. And if we don't get a chance to talk to them, we may not get the right requirements. So who are the stakeholders on this? And stakeholders can include the end users who use the application or the process. It can be operational support, which we always tend to forget between them and the legal legal team. We kind of forget to invite to the party. So it's really understanding who are the core stakeholders that I need to talk to in this change. And it'll be different from one change to another change, but it's like, who do I need to, who's impacted, and who do I need to talk to, and how do I, what questions do I want to ask? Because that all feeds into all that elicitation piece. And then the change itself. The change is the active transformation in response to a need. So if it's a problem, let's fix the problem. So that's going to be the change. So how do we get from current state to future state? If it's an opportunity, again, it's still current state to future state, but it's going to be more an opportunity. Hey, we can do this. Or here's an opportunity that fell in our lap, and let's take a look at that. Maybe it's using new technology. As all AI is really big, so we have an opportunity. How do we work with AI in our organization? What can it help us do? And a lot of organizations now have really incorporated that, saying, okay, we have some big projects around AI. How do we leverage AI? So it's going to be the active transformation on how we incorporate that into our processes, into our decision making, into our data analytics, all of that. Value, the worth or importance of something within a context. Value is critical. And let me tell you, value is in the eyes of the beholder. What I value, you might not value, or vice versa. What a stakeholder valued last year may not be what they value this year. Maybe their directives have changed. Maybe the strategic initiatives have changed. And sometimes it just depends on the circumstance. I worked with a medical device company. I have a long background in consulting. And regarding value, if they were making a medical device that was first to market, usually you get huge market share being first, because there's nothing else on the market. So if the doctors and nurses want to use your device, so they said so value might be first to market. But if there's something out there and they made a device, they're going to look, their value is quality. How can we make a better device? How can we make a better mousetrap, in the sense that people will want that instead of what they're using now? And so the same company, same person, it kind of depends on, again, context. What do they value? And that's really critical, because you can give them a great solution, but if they have no value in that solution, they're going to say, why did you just waste my time and waste my money? So it is about the value, understanding the value from the stakeholders. And then, of course, the solution. We go from current state to future state. How do we get there? What's the path? So a solution is a way to satisfy one or more needs, one or more problems, one or more opportunities, if you will, within a context. And so there might be a number of solutions that, maybe as we do reorg, we also have to redo some of our policies. Maybe we have to do some of our processes. A solution can be anything. A lot of times when we're working particularly with software, we always think a solution is a piece of software or application, or maybe hardware. Solution can be anything. It can be a new process. It can be a new reorganization. It can be a new building. Solution can be anything. It's just what fixes the problem or takes advantage of the opportunity. And these 6 core concepts work together. You cannot do one without the other. And that's why it's so critical in business analysis. And they're actually, according to the grapevine, thinking about also updating the CCBA, which is the next level, and the CBAP. And so I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some updates to that as well, but they started with the ECBA. So you get to be on the ground floor on that one. And again, they did talk about it, but they didn't use it as a center of focus. So that's what they're using as a center of focus now. So exam structure, what's changed? Used to be, actually that should be 6 knowledge areas, not 5 knowledge areas. I don't know how that got in there, but anyway, now we have domains. So there's 9 domains you can be tested on in ECBA. 6 domains are from what we just talked about, that core competency model. Here are your 6 domains, so you need to understand that. The others are more foundational pieces, and this comes from not the BA-BOK, which used to be the source of all for all the exams. Now they have the business analysis standard, and there's 3 chapters in that standard. Also goes high level in the other knowledge areas, but understanding business analysis, what is it? What is the mindset we have to have for being a really good business analyst? That's really critical. And then being able to implement business analysis. So that's more of understanding just the basics and concepts around business analysis, and then adding those core competency or components of the BOCM. So that's the exam structure. So it went from 6 knowledge areas to 9 domains. Number of questions is the same, thank goodness, only 50, so that's good. Again, they changed it to situational questions rather than knowledge-based questions. So they'll give you a situation, and we're gonna practice some, see how you do. And then the exam length has changed, because it's like, okay, it's not just regurgitating what I memorized, right? And it's really thinking about, okay, here's a situation. What am I going to do with that? So they changed the time from 60 to 75 minutes. So it allows you at least a little bit more time to think about something than just saying, oh, this is the definition of that. The delivery doesn't change. IIBA uses PSI for their proctoring, online proctoring, and because this is a short exam, unlike the CCBA or CBAP, which is 3 to 3.5 hours long, depending on which exam you're talking about. But this is, an hour and 15 minutes. And so they just do it online. So all their specialty certifications, as well as ECBA, you can only do it virtually online, but they make it fairly easy. And then they also align it to the industry standards. When they created new ECBA, they worked with their corporate partners. And they sent out a ton of surveys to other corporations besides, and they said, hey, what are you looking for? If we have this certification, what do you think is important? And so employers came back and said, what's important to us? Not that they just, know what is a stakeholder? What is a requirement? But it's demonstrating really job readiness. Are they ready to do the job? So they really wanted it to have a real life feel, real life application. And so there's still the what and why you need to, know the business analysis techniques, but it's about how do you want to use them? What technique would be the best in this situation? How can we solve business problems? And so what organizations, as you know, when they hire employees, are trying to get value from that. So as business analysts, one of the core things we need to do is provide value to our organization. We provide value to the organization by understanding how this change and how this information can add value to the organization to help them address their challenges, to help them stay viable. Because there's, as you know, a lot of companies have gone under over the last 5 years. You know, how do they remain viable? How do they solve their business problems? How do they make data-driven decisions? How do they stack up against their competitors? We should be adding value to that because we understand how everything fits together from a big picture and being able to work on that. So personal benefits, of course, I think any certification has both organizational personal benefits. You know, we're more competitive. Hey, we got, you know, we can put the little shingle up. You know, it's a sense of accomplishment. Hey, we did it. That's always good. Certainly career enhancement. I know a lot of organizations I've worked with, they said if you get a certification, you know, you get a little bump or you can move up to the next level. Certainly global recognition of this certification is not just, you know, a state thing, you know, but it's globally recognized. It's like, okay, people understand it. Certainly more earning power, increased employability with these crazy times we're living at. It's always nice to add something to your tool set, right? So organizations, how do they benefit? They have employees that are, you know, understanding what business analysis is. They're providing value with business analysis. They're showing their dedication to saying, hey, we got certified business analyst, you know, so they look better. And it reflects the fact that if we're all on the same page and using industry standards, that's just going to help all organizations being able to certainly move forward. So here's the exam blueprint. Like I said, it's 9 domains. So if you had these 3 and these 6. Now, again, the first 3 domains are foundational and they're in the business analysis standards. So just understanding when the heck is business analysis? What's the mindset? How do we implement it? And then certainly the domains, the 6 domains of the core competency model, core concept model. And so these are the percentages. And so there are 50 questions. There's quite a few in understanding business analysis. There's 10. Mindset 7, 3, implementing business analysis. That's kind of just a shorter domain. All the rest have 5. And it seems like a lot, but the basic premise of the exam, once you get the core concepts, you should be able to answer those 5 questions without too much of a problem. So we're going to do some sample questions here and see what you know, even though you haven't started studying. And so I want you to throw it in the chat just for fun. A business analysis professional, because these are examples of what the questions are going to be like on the exam. Business analysis professional is reviewing a company's existing order management system before recommending changes, which always makes sense. Let's figure out where they're at before we recommend changes. What is the primary objective of analyzing the current state? Is it A, understanding the stakeholder flows, processes, and systems to identify impacted areas? Identify managers who will interact with the proposed changes when the system's been implemented, develop a prototype for testing future system design before we implement it, and create a risk management strategy, risk plan, risk matrix for challenges during implementation. So I'm curious, just throw in the chat, everyone, what do you think it is? So Nadia, I said D, what do the others? Just take your best guess. You know, the nice thing is, doesn't matter if you get it right or wrong because it doesn't count. So what do you think it is? Just kind of have fun with it. Do your best guess. I know you probably didn't think this was going to be an exam itself, so. Anyone else? Of course, it could be circulating there, or sometimes my chat responses are a little bit late. So, well, to keep going and not to belabor too much, it actually is understanding stakeholder workflows, processes, and systems to identify impacted areas. The risk, creating a risk management strategy, risk plan, risk matrix is something that we do, but it's not the primary objective for analyzing the current state. What we want to know is what is it doing today? What is it? What is the processes? What is the sequencing of activities and the systems? So that is so second question. You have documented stakeholder needs, the problem or the opportunity, but a requirement for a new future remains unclear. What should you do next? Should you submit the ambiguous requirement for approval to the approval team for further clarification? Should you collaborate with the stakeholder to refine and confirm that this is an ambiguous requirement? I don't know what to do with this. Consult with the development team to determine the technical feasibility and remove the unclear requirement from the documentation because it's too unclear. Nobody knows what it says, so let's just get rid of it. What would you do? Excellent, excellent. I'm seeing a lot of B's. So good. Yes, it is. So you can't submit it for approval because nobody will know what it is if it's ambiguous. You can't certainly, if you don't know what it is, you can't determine whether it's technically feasible. And sweeping it under the rug isn't going to help either because it might have had something to do with something important. So yeah, we talk to the stakeholders and say, hey, I'm not sure I understand this. Let's dig a little bit deeper. So good job, team. All right, one last one, just to make your brains work a little bit here. Which of the following best communicates the value of a new solution to stakeholders? A detailed report justifying 40 hours of work and resources invested in the project, a breakdown of implementation timelines to show how the solution meets deadlines, a comprehensive list of technical specifications and features of the solution, a presentation showing how the solution will reduce costs by 20% and increase efficiency. So once again, what following best communicates the value of a new solution? So if you look at that and you're saying, hey, I need to sell this and we're looking at value, which one best shows value? All right, I'm seeing some D's. Good. D final answer. I love it. Okay, yes, D is, because this one is just like, okay, we did the hours. How is that providing value? I always have to think about value to the organization. And you were all doing that. Breaking down of the implementation timelines to show how it met deadlines. Nah, that's not, PMs might be, project managers might be important to them, but that's not communicating the value. So presentation showing how the solution will reduce costs by, if we do this, because this is our key, cost by 20% and increase efficiency. So well done, well done. All right, so ECBA certification process. First, you have to purchase the exam. So log into IIBA. If you are not a member, create an account. It's cheaper if you're a member, I'm just gonna tell you. Select ECBA and pay the exam fee. There is no criteria for qualification for ECBA. You have no hours, you don't have any set class time you need to do before that. You just say, hey, I want to take the exam. Agree to certain attestations, so that you ethical conduct, professional standards, that you're going to be ethical as a business analyst and you're going to adhere to the professional standards. Certainly you have to agree to IIB certification and recertification terms and the IABA guide to online proctor's exams so that we're all behaving well. And then study for the exam, look at the structure, the blueprints, ECBA reference map, certainly get a copy. And these are the nice thing, they're free if you're a member. Business Analysis Standard and the BA Bach Guide, because there's some things that come from that too. And then review all the information, study for the exam. Generally, it doesn't take you too long because this isn't just a long exam. So, a couple weeks is what we suggest, especially if you take our class, a couple of weeks and you should be good. I mean, it just depends on how much time you have to study and how much other things are taking your focus. So then you review the exam information, schedule the exam. So I always say schedule it when you're alert, when you're most awake. So some people are morning people. They might want to schedule it in the morning. Some people are afternoon people or evening people. So, the nice thing, you can schedule it usually, I think most 24 hours. Schedule it when you're awake, not when you're lull. So my lull is always 2 to 3 in the afternoon. So I'm like, I'd never want to take an exam when I'm kind of half sleeping here. And I'll get my second win and I'm good for the rest of the day, but just always seems to be a lull there. So then take the exam and pass. All right. So study references. This is from IIBA's. This is their reference material. Get the business analysis standards for sure. And I really like this book. Not only is the first 3 chapters going to be tested on, but what they've done is taken the concepts from the Bach and shortened them. So you don't need to read, the huge Bach that, actually it's good reading material if you want to fall asleep. Good stuff, just very dry. But both, you can do both downloads. Again, they just do a high level of what's in the box, so it's kind of nice. So you get a sense without getting into the weeds. Additional support, the blueprint, look at the exam blueprints because it'll tell you where to kind of focus your time. Reference map tells you how it references to the business analysis standard or to the BA box. So it's kind of like it links to where information will be on the exam. Sample exam questions, I gave you 3. There's more out there. And then they have a stakeholder Q&A, which is, kind of nice. So if you have any questions. So always check with iiba.org for the latest. We too, Watermark Learning, have exam resources, certainly flashcards. You can make your own. But, I know that I just said the exam isn't a knowledge-based test, so it's not just regurgitating what the definition is. However, you sort of need to know the definition. So if they put it in a sentence, you know what in the heck they're talking about. So, but you can also make your own flashcards. You don't need to. Study tables is always good. They're kind of my favorite, but it gives you a big picture of how everything's put together. How to Talk BA is a great reference at your desk because it kind of translates that terminology. And then we also have practice questions. So I think we have like 200 and there's 50 questions on the exam and we have enough questions for you to take at least a practice exam 4 times with having different questions. It all gets mixed up. So you may have questions a number of times, and you get 90 days access to the course if you'd like to do that. So exam fees, Susan, what does this cost? Okay, so IIB's exam fees include 3 things. 1, money for the exam. That's good. 2, money for the practice exam. So they also give you a practice exam. And then they also provide you with a learning journey so that you can kind of figure out how you need to study. So for IIBA members, it's $245. For non, $395. So, and if you're a non-member, the $395 does include a membership. If you're already a member, then you get to save some money. And if you are a student saying, geez, Susan, I don't have that much money. If you're a non-member, it's a $350. Now, Watermark is an educated provider of IIBA called EEP, which means nothing to too many people, but we are a preferred provider of theirs. And we are providing, Watermark Learning's providing a 30% off certification bundle, which gives you the membership and the discount. So full price for this would be $395. It's only $275 for that. And the nice thing is it's like, well, Susan, I'm already a member. Why am I paying for a membership fee? What they do is they just extend your membership for another year. So you get a free year anyway. So it's kind of nice. So if you do go and take our class, you can get the ECBA discount. So you have to sign up for the class, and the discount is kind of a little bit convoluted, sorry to say, but if you have any questions, you can go to info@watermarklearning.com to make sure that you can get that 30% off. And then instead of just going to IIBA, we give you a voucher, and then you put that voucher number in and get your discount. So you get, again, a free membership, and that includes, or 1-year membership, and that includes a free membership to your local chapter. So I am in Minnesota, so not only do I get an IIBA membership, but I get my Minnesota chapter IIBA for free. And so that's always nice. And then, you know, it pays 30% off for the exam. Who doesn't like 30% off? So prep tips. Okay, study well, usually about 20 hours on the average. Certainly read the business analysis standard, particularly the first 3 chapters, but also the rest of the information is always helpful. I would skim possibly the BA Bach guide. Again, if you take our class, we've filtered through the BA Bach guide for information you need. So you probably won't even need to skim it if you take one of our classes. If you want some of our study materials, you can purchase it or you can make your own. And then just, you know, if you purchase our practice exams, you can just keep going through them and seeing how you're doing, see if you're comfortable, and then take the exam and pass. A little further testing tips. And this is, I have a lot of certifications. So I'm going to give you some tips that have helped me throughout. One is read the question carefully. So I have a lot of IIBA certifications. This has served me well, because the thing is, sometimes they have stuff in the questions that have nothing to do with really what the question is about, but they give you context. So you can easily, I found, sometimes get off on a tangent when you're trying to answer the question. So I read the question, then I read all the answers. It's A, B, C, or D. The nice thing is you get 25% chance of getting it right. And so then I'll read so I read the question, read all the answers, and then read the question again, saying, okay, now what are they asking me? Because oftentimes when I read the answers, it's like going, oh, that's where they're coming from. Okay, now I get it. And so, or if I just want to confirm, am I seeing what I think I'm seeing? So read the question, all the answers, and I go back and I select my final answer. Normally I can get at least down to 2, and then sometimes I might just have to guess. Don't dwell on any question generally, and you've probably heard this if you've had any other certifications, mark and skip the hard ones, and then go back, because the system does show you which ones you flagged or marked. So you can just click on those. Maybe out of 50 questions, I had 5 that I wasn't sure about, and I can go back and review those 5 without going through the whole 50 again. Just make sure you just click on the flagged ones. Here's my suggestion. 50 or 75 minutes isn't a lot. I mean, some of you might get done in a half an hour. Some of you might go right up to the hour. It kind of depends on the exam. Sometimes I have gone up even as many times as I've taken certification exams. Sometimes I go up to the hour. And I find that I mark all of them. I answer all of them. So I might say ABC, oh, C or D, C or D, C or D, and then read the question again. It's like, okay, my gut says D. I still might flag it because I'm not positive. And then I'll go on to my next question, then I'll go on to my next question, and I might have the same, okay, is it A or D, A or D, and I'll give my gut feel, but I'll mark it because if I get time, I can go back and say, oh, Susan, what were you thinking of? Of course it's A, J's. Most of the time I leave my gut because first of all, your gut is usually right. Not your personal gut, but and here's the other thing is if I don't get time, maybe I'm like I got 1 minute and I've got 5 flag questions I want to review. I already answered them. If I don't answer them, I know I got it wrong. At least if I answer it, I got 25% chance. If I narrow it down to 2, I got 15. Just saying, might be the key thing because I know I actually proctor exams also. Sometimes people run out of time, and it would have been better if you had just, not had to go back to those flagged ones because you answered it. If you have time, go back. If you don't have time, at least you have an answer. Don't second guess yourself. As I said, I proctor them and I see things erased and they select another answer and it's wrong. They should have just stuck with their first answer. That's why I say sometimes unless you really have proof that you know in your heart of hearts that this is wrong and you really want A and you put D, otherwise don't change it because you're probably right the first time. Narrow down your answers to 2 guesses. Don't change them, like I said, and observe the elapsed time. They'll tell you right on top. They'll give you one question at a time. On top, they'll say, hey, you've got 30 minutes left and you're only got 20 answered. Oh, well, I better speed up, or vice versa. So fun facts. I will leave you kind of with this. Look at this came out in 2016 and I didn't start capturing the data in 2016, which would have been 0 anyway, but started in 2020 and notice how much it has grown. So 2020, it was out 4 years, had about 4,000 people, almost 5. Not much, we got a couple thousand more in 2021. A couple thousand more in 2022. Oh, we got a little bit more heavy lift. And so now in 2025, and this is just as of July 31st, this isn't even December. These are all December, as you can see. 17,000, over 17,000. And so it is all of a sudden become really hot certification. And it is even surpassed, it has not surpassed CBAB, but it has passed the CCBA, so kind of interesting. ECBA salary holders have steadily climbed from 71,000, average salary, almost 72,000 to 80. So nice clearer booth. Would you recommend certification? 95%, yeah. Benefits, higher confidence, upskilling, help me find a job, salary increase, more fulfillment, promotion, and improved performance, review ratings. It's like, yeah, now, sometimes it's just about the confidence. Hey, yeah, I know what I'm doing. I kind of like taking certifications like that. It's like, well, I've been doing this for 20 years, but, probably should see if I actually know my stuff. Because a lot of times we learn through School of Hard Knocks, right? It's just like, well, that works. So, and then you can put sometimes a name on it and everything. It's really kind of cool. So with that said, we do have an ECBA certification class. It is actually I don't know why I put 2 days, probably because we're going to change it to, it's 3 days. So third, fourth, and fifth. So I apologize for that mix up. It is 3 days. So just check it out. Otherwise, you can do your own learning as well. And are there any questions? I appreciate you all sticking around. Any questions that I can answer that you have around ECBA?
Hey, Dr. Heidorn, I will go ahead and give our audience a minute to throw any last minute questions or feedback in the chat. I also went ahead and dropped a link to the ECBA info, a little bit more about the ECBA. So go ahead and click on that. And if you missed out on any of this session, we will be sharing a recording with everyone in an email after the webinar. So be on the lookout for that. I believe that'll be it for us today. Oh, Nadia mentioned, yeah, it seems a lot similar to project management certifications, the setup.
I mean, PMs and BAs certainly work together. It is different in the focus that you're focusing on actually the solution instead of the project. So just kind of a different view. But yeah, all certifications are going to be an exam. So absolutely, Nadia.
Awesome. Well, all right. Yep, we are getting some great thank yous in the chat.
Yay.
And thank you all so much for joining us today and hanging out. We thank you so much and have a fantastic rest of y'all's week and weekend. And of course, thank you so much, Dr. Hydron, for all the insights.
You are most welcome. Good luck, everyone.
All righty. Thanks, everyone. Bye for now.